Welcome to Human Growth and Development, Development through the Lifespan. As we begin our study of human development, it is good to examine your current beliefs about growth and development. Take a few moments to read through the following statements and then rate yourself by responding that you strongly disagree, moderately agree, or strongly agree with each of them. We will look at each of these statements in more depth as we move through the semester. The objectives for this module of the Human Growth and Development course are as follows: to define the concept of theory, to list and describe several theories of development, to explain psychosocial theory and its components, and finally to relate the appropriateness of the theory of psychosocial development to the counseling profession. We begin by asking the question, what is a theory? Theories are broad, organized explanations and predictions concerning phenomena of interest. It's a logical system of concepts that helps explain observations and contributes to the development of a body of knowledge. A theory of human development usually helps to explain how people change and grow over time, as well as how they remain the same. There are a number of questions that should be addressed by theories of development. You can see them here on this slide. In addition to these questions, we might ask, what are the mechanisms that account for growth from conception through old age, and to what extent do these mechanisms vary across the lifespan? What factors underlie stability and change across the lifespan? How do physical, cognitive, emotional, and social functions interact? How do these interactions account for mixtures of thoughts, feelings, health states, and social relationships? And finally, how does the social context affect individual development? As counselors, there are a number of questions we should address as we consider development through the lifespan. Some of these questions include, why should we study lifespan development? How does it affect us as counselors? What is it? What theoretical perspectives have guided lifespan development? And what is the psychosocial theory of lifespan development? We will be looking at these questions and answering them throughout this module. So why should we study lifespan development? The study of lifespan development allows helping professionals to more fully understand our clients' and students' concerns. It's a useful tool for making decisions. It helps us as counselors to reflect on our own lives, facilitating our personal growth. It challenges and expands our personal views of human growth and development. The preamble to the American Counseling Association Code of Ethics states, members of the ACA are dedicated to the enhancement of human development throughout the lifespan. So it is an ethical obligation for us as counselors to understand human growth and development. What is lifespan development? Lifespan development is the field of study that examines patterns of growth, change, and stability in behavior that occur throughout the entire lifespan. There are 4 major topical areas that should be covered in studying lifespan development. They include physical development, cognitive development, personality development, and social development. Take a moment to name some of the factors that you believe influence the development of an individual. Some of the factors that we will be looking at that influence development throughout this course are listed here on this slide. We know that families, individuals who share a common destiny and who experience a sense of emotional intimacy, who care about and take care of one another, have a great influence on development. We also know that culture, which is the socially standardized ways of thinking, feeling, and acting that are shared by members of a society, influence development greatly. What about cohort effects? Cohort effects are examples of history-graded influences. Consider the following question. How would a student's cohort membership affect his or her readiness for school? For example, what would be the benefits and drawbacks of coming from a cohort in which internet use was routine, compared with earlier cohorts before the appearance of the internet? A number of theories exist that explain human development in specific areas or capacities. These theories influence and have links to the psychosocial theory that we will be exploring in class. Those theories are listed on the slide. The following slides give a brief overview of some of the most well-known theories of development and their contribution to the study of human development. Take some time to review the information on these slides. Narration will begin again on slide 26. The psychosocial theory of development is one that we will be focusing on in this course. The psychosocial theory was developed by Erik Erikson. Erikson postulated that individuals went through 8 stages as they developed over the course of the lifespan. These 8 stages included trust versus mistrust, autonomy versus shame and doubt, initiative versus guilt, industry versus inferiority, identity versus role diffusion, intimacy versus isolation, generativity versus stagnation, and ego integrity versus despair. Each of these stages of development present a crisis or conflict to be resolved. Each stage has a name but no age assignment. Each individual has his or her own timetable for development. Psychosocial theory, according to Newman and Newman, which is the theory that we will be focusing on in this course, views human development as a product of the ongoing interactions between individual, biological, and psychological needs and abilities on the one hand, and societal expectations and demands on the other hand. The biological processes are required for the physical functioning of an individual. The psychological are the mental processes that allow an individual to make meaning of his experiences and to take action. Societal processes are those that foster or disrupt a person's sense of societal integration, belonging, and social identity. A change in one system will usually bring about changes in the others. This theory also states that development occurs as a result of the continuous interaction of the individual and the social environment. The I-we relationships are important as we develop. The theory also states that the context in which we live is constantly changing, and we need to study development in relationship to the dynamic nature of our natural and social environment. Psychosocial theory, according to Newman and Newman, contains 5 assumptions, which are: number 1, growth occurs at every period of life from conception through very old age. The second is, individual lives show continuity and change as they progress through time. The third states that we need to understand the whole person because we function in an integrated manner. Fourth, every person's behavior must be analyzed in the context of relevant settings and personal relationships. And finally, people contribute actively to their own development. The psychosocial theory, according to Newman and Newman, contains 11 life stages, 3 more than Erikson's theory. It also focuses on the developmental tasks that are associated with each life stage. As with Erikson, Newman and Newman state that a psychosocial crisis arises at each life stage, and there is a central process that occurs for resolving the psychosocial crisis. The formation of basic adaptive capacities that occur at each life stage are the outcome of the resolution of the psychosocial crisis, and may be either the prime adaptive ego qualities or the core pathologies. The 11 stages of the psychosocial theory, along with their psychosocial crises, are as follows: the prenatal stage, which has no psychosocial crises; infancy, with the psychosocial crises being trust versus mistrust; toddlerhood, psychosocial crisis is autonomy versus shame and doubt; in early school age, the psychosocial crisis is initiative versus guilt; in middle childhood, it is industry versus inferiority. The psychosocial crisis in early adolescence is group identity versus alienation, and in later adolescence, it is individual identity versus identity confusion. Early adulthood poses the psychosocial crisis of intimacy versus isolation. In middle adulthood, it is generativity versus stagnation. Integrity versus despair is the psychosocial crisis of later adulthood, and in elderhood or very old age, the psychosocial crisis is immortality versus extinction. You notice that there are 11 stages as opposed to the 8 stages of Erikson's theory. Early adolescence and later adolescence are 2 divisions of Erikson's adolescence stage, and the addition of very old age or elderhood brings the number of life stages to 11. There are specific areas of accomplishment that should occur in each life stage in areas of physical, cognitive, social, and emotional development, and in development of the self-concept. These are called the developmental tasks. Again, there is a psychosocial crisis that occurs at each life stage. The psychosocial crisis is a normal set of stresses and strains that occur that cause an individual to make psychological efforts to adjust to the demands of the social environment. The central process is the means by which an individual takes in or makes sense of social pressures and cultural expectations, gives them personal meaning, and undergoes gradual adaptive changes resulting in a new relationship between self and society. This is the process by which the psychosocial crisis is resolved. This psychosocial theory also includes the radius of significant relationships. The significance relationships include those of the parents or caregivers at the beginning of life, and then extends outward to include neighbors, teachers, peers, co-workers, and etc. as an individual grows and develops. The resolution of the psychosocial crisis results in coping behaviors. The coping behaviors may be the prime adaptive ego qualities, which would be the positive adaptive outcomes, which lead to psychosocial well-being, or the negative maladaptive outcomes may be the core pathologies, which lead to ineffective, even destructive behaviors for the individual. Psychosocial theory looks at both the individual and the social environment to understand how their interaction impacts one another. Now, consider the following question. A client comes to you, the counselor, for assistance in making a decision that will impact that client's life. What do you need to know about the client in order to help in an appropriate and effective manner?